The question no one ever asks out loud is whether love listens to calendars, whether it counts years the way people do, or whether it arrives quietly, without permission, in places where it is least expected. He had long stopped believing in such things. At 72, life had settled into predictable silence. Mornings began with the same cracked mug, the same window view, the same memories that refused to fade. His wife had been gone for 11 years, yet her absence still occupied space, like a chair no one dared to move. The world no longer asked much of him, and in return, he gave it little. Days passed not slowly, but hollowly, as if time itself had grown tired of noticing him. She was 24 and constantly in motion, surrounded by noise yet painfully unseen. Her life was full of ambition, deadlines, expectations, and voices telling her who she should be. Friends laughed loudly, relationships came and went quickly, and everything felt temporary. She smiled often, but rarely felt heard. Somewhere beneath the rush of youth was a quiet exhaustion, a longing for something steady, something honest. She did not yet know what she was searching for, only that she had not found it among people her own age. Their meeting was unremarkable by every standard except the one that mattered. A rainy afternoon, a nearly empty cafe tucked between a bookstore and a closed theater. He sat alone, as he often did, reading the same book he had started weeks ago but never progressed through. She entered, shaking rain from her coat, scanning the room for an empty seat. The cafe was fuller than usual, and the only open chair was across from him. She hesitated, unsure whether to ask, but he looked up first. His voice was calm, unassuming, almost surprised to be used. "Please," he said, gesturing to the chair. "It's not doing anything important." Their first conversation was brief, polite, forgettable on the surface. Weather, coffee, the inconvenience of rain. But something lingered beneath the words, something unspoken yet felt. When she stood to leave, she thanked him twice, though she didn't know why. He watched her walk out, unsure why the room felt quieter than before. Neither of them expected to see the other again, yet both found themselves hoping they might. They did, not immediately, but often enough to feel intentional. The cafe became a shared space, though neither claimed it as such. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. Silence between them felt natural, not awkward. When they talked, it was never forced. He spoke of small things at first, books he loved, places he once traveled, observations about the world that came from having watched it change too many times. She listened, truly listened, in a way few ever had. In return, she spoke of her dreams, her doubts, her fear of choosing the wrong life and waking up too late to fix it. He never interrupted. He never tried to shape her answers. He simply listened, offering perspective only when asked. What surprised him most was how alive he felt in her presence, not younger, but more awake. What surprised her was how safe she felt with him, how she didn't feel the need to perform or impress. There was no expectation, no urgency. Just presence. And presence, it turned out, was rare. Weeks passed, then months. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. They walked through parks, sat on benches, shared meals without ceremony. There was no physical boundary crossed, no dramatic declaration. Yet something undeniable formed between them, quiet but powerful. It was not built on desire alone, but on understanding. He saw her not as naive or incomplete, but as capable and thoughtful. She saw him not as fragile or outdated, but as whole and complex. They met each other as equals, despite the years that separated them. Still, doubt crept in. He felt it first. Late at night, alone in his apartment, he questioned himself harshly. What right did he have to occupy her time, her emotions? What future could possibly justify this connection? He imagined the looks, the whispers, the judgments that would follow her. He imagined being the reason she was misunderstood. Guilt settled heavily on his chest, and more than once, he considered ending things before they went further, before anyone could be hurt. She struggled too, though in different ways. Friends teased her when she mentioned him casually, not knowing the depth of their bond. Her family raised eyebrows, offered warnings disguised as concern. "Be careful," they said. "This isn't normal." The word echoed painfully. Normal. As if feelings could be categorized so neatly. She asked herself whether she was confused, whether she was searching for something in him that should be found elsewhere. But every time she imagined her life without him, something essential felt missing. The turning point came quietly, as most real moments do. He fell ill, nothing dramatic, just enough to remind them both of time's imbalance. She visited him, sitting by his bedside, reading aloud from the book he never finished. He watched her with an expression that held both gratitude and sorrow. In that moment, the truth became impossible to ignore. This was not a passing connection. It mattered, and because it mattered, it frightened them. When he recovered, he pulled away. Calls went unanswered. Visits stopped. She felt the absence immediately, like a sudden silence after constant sound. Confusion turned to hurt, then to anger. When she finally confronted him, his voice trembled as he spoke words he had rehearsed alone. He told her she deserved more, someone her age, someone with time to offer. He told her this could never be fair. His eyes avoided hers, afraid of what he might see. She listened without interruption, then spoke with a steadiness that surprised even her. She told him that fairness was not something he got to decide alone. That choice mattered, that she was not being rescued or misled. She told him that what they shared had value, regardless of how long it lasted or how others perceived it. Silence followed, heavy but honest. They did not promise forever. They did not pretend age did not exist. Instead, they acknowledged reality and chose truth anyway. They chose respect. They chose openness. They chose to let the connection exist without demanding it become something it could not. In doing so, they found peace. The world did not suddenly approve. Some people never understood, but understanding was never the point. What mattered was that two people met each other fully, without fear or illusion. In time, life changed again, as it always does. Circumstances shifted, paths diverged. When they eventually parted, it was not with regret, but with gratitude. Years later, she would think of him often, in moments of stillness, carrying his words with her like quiet guidance. He would think of her as proof that life had surprised him one last time, that even near the end, something new had been possible. Their story did not end with permanence, but with meaning. And perhaps that is what love truly is, not a promise of duration, but an exchange that leaves both people changed. Not defined by age, but by connection. Not measured in years, but in depth.